Hi everybody! So I'm here to do a demo on how I made the backgrounds for these Northern Lights cards that I shared with you on another video. Some folks had asked to see how I done that, and you'll probably be surprised it isn't too hard to do this. So I'm going to share with you what I did, and let me just preface this by saying I'm not an expert. I'm going to show you what I did because people asked to see it, and you guys can kind of work out your own way of doing it as well. It's not anything exact that you have to follow, but I'll just talk through some of the reasons why I did some of the things that I did. So here's what you're going to need. You're going to need some paper towels. I have two of these, basically half sheets. I have some of this white card base that I use for all of my cards. This is Paper Tray Ink Stamper Select White. It is equivalent to a 110-pound cardstock, and it holds ink very well. Some that you may find in, say, your local box craft stores aren't as good for that, for blending. They're good for card bases, but they're not good for stamping. So I just use this as my regular card base because it's just easier for me to buy one thing, and it's a good price. Distress Oxide inks. This is what I use to create the galaxy. Not the galaxy, but you can do that. The Northern Lights backgrounds. Now, I changed one of the colors out. So I have Cracked Pistachio, Wilted Violet, and Chipped Sapphire. This is the color I changed out. Subbed in the Wilted Violet because the inspiration photo, which I'm going to show you, matches this better, I think, or I wanted to try this out. So I'm going to use that today. And then the other thing I used was my regular Distress ink black soot. And this is to kind of darken up the edges of the sky. As some of you know, Distress Oxide is a mix between a pigment and a dye ink, while the Distress ink is more of a dye ink. So this is more transparent, which will give you the color that's underneath it, showing through a little bit, but this is more opaque. So this is going to hide, you know, that white cardstock. So that is kind of the reason why I'm using the two different types of ink. And then I have some white Daniel Smith watercolor in this half pan, and it's got water in it because I want the watercolor to soften up so I can use it. And I am going to use this VersaFine black onyx with these tree stamps that I had used last time. These come from this set here from Stampin' Up, Rooted in Nature. And it's just these four, or I'm sorry, these four trees, but there are three stamps together. So I'm going to just put that off to the side until I need them. And then I also have my ink blending brushes. Now, those I found on Amazon, and I have a video on this a while back in a haul video, and there's a link to Amazon on it. These three brushes I'm going to use for my Distress ink. You don't need three. I'm using this because I have three different colors for the galaxy, and to save time on the video from cleaning the brushes in between each one, because you don't want to contaminate your colors, I'm going to use three separate brushes so I don't have to worry about that for the video. You can use one. Okay. The other thing I have is a fourth brush, and this is the one I'm going to use for my black soot ink, because I don't want to contaminate my ink pads between my regular Distress ink and my oxides. You don't want to contaminate this pad because this will clog up if it gets the dye ink in it. So for that purpose, and for speed of having to clean the brushes, again, I'm going to use a separate brush, and this is just a larger brush. There's no reasoning really why I'm using the large brush versus say a smaller one, but I will say that because the inspiration photo has these wide bands of color in them, that I kind of want to keep, you know, the wider brushes as opposed to a very narrow brush. So this is the inspiration photo. It's not mine. I saw this on Instagram and thought, oh, I'll make a card from it. And I'm not trying to replicate the photo, but more of the feeling of the Northern Lights. So you see the treetops. There's some snow in this picture. You see the stars, and you have a very bright either that's the moon or it's a very large star, very shiny, bright star. So there you go. That's the inspiration photo. I'm going to keep it off to the side, and we'll get started. The other thing I'll mention is that I've taped off my card base. This is an A2 size card base that hasn't yet been folded in half. I've scored it. And then the tape is off to the left hand side, because this will be the back of the card, this will be the front, and it'll be a vertical card. So I'm going to take one of my paper towels and place it over the back side of my card, so while I'm working I don't get my inky fingers on it. And you can choose how you want to do this. I'm just going to protect that back side because I have gotten ink onto it before, and then I'll have to start over because I don't like that. So I am zoomed in as much as I think I can get. Sorry you won't be able to see all the things on the side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take all the lids off of my ink so I can start my blending, and we'll get started here in a second. So I've got the 3. Here's the 4th one. And the other thing I am using underneath is my tonic glass mat. Now, this is a glass mat that was put out before the Tim Holtz one. It's the same thing, except it's got metric markings on it. I don't really use it for measurement. I use it for cleaning because I find it a lot easier to clean off of a glass mat. And blending on this is going to be much easier and faster, hopefully, with showing you everything. The other thing I have on standby is a bottle of water so I can help clean myself up a little quicker, and this water brush, which I'll use for splattering. So I'm going to put that off to the side for now, and I'm going to start with my blending. So I'm going to start in with the green, which is the lightest color, and I'm going to purposely put this somewhere towards the bottom third of my card, and the reason being is because I'm going to use those treetops in my image or in my scene here to kind of focus more in on the sky portion of the image. So the green is going to go, even though it's in the middle portion of the photo, I'm going to put it towards the bottom third. And I'm just going to make it a little bit wavy to give it some interest, so it's not a straight line. And we'll just blend some of the green in. Now, when I move to the second color, I will switch brushes between all my colors. And again, that's so I don't contaminate the ink between ink pads. So, and I'm not going to focus on blending the 2 colors together just yet. I'm just trying to get the ink down onto the piece of paper. And, because we're working with something that we are trying to replicate as the Northern Lights, you want to keep it kind of light and not too heavy of a color. So that's enough for the green. I'm going to switch to the violet, and I'm just going to put it right above where the green is. Again, not focusing too much on the blending of the 2 colors together. I'm going to try and go in with a lighter hand as well. And I know it doesn't look like much, but this is how everything starts, right? You have to take the risk, and really the outcome is much better if you, just kind of take your time as well. And there we go. There's the purple. Now I'm going to do the blue, and the blue is really going to go around all of this purple and green. So that's going to take a little bit longer because there's more of it. So I'm going to kind of slide down, and I'm sorry if I go off the camera a little bit. I like to kind of move around my paper if I can. It's just easier for me and more comfortable, I guess, for me to work on that way. And with the blue, you want to get that intense blue, not too dark, but you do want to cover up the white cardstock. So I may press a little bit harder on the blue because there's more area for it. Now the deepest part of the blue is going to be at the top of your card because that's going to be the darkest part of the sky. So if there's anywhere you want to concentrate your color, it's going to be at the top. But I'm not going to worry too much about that right now because the black is also going to help deepen that. So I'm going to move to the sides. The other thing I'll mention is I'm going off the edge here, and because my card is white on the inside, I want to make sure that I don't spread that color around on the inside of my card. So I'm going to actually push it down a little bit because I don't want to clean up this ink. I want to use as much as I can. And I'm going to come into the side of the card and do some blending here. And I'm sorry if the camera's shaking. It's kind of the way it's attached to my desk. The desk shakes and the camera shakes. So apologize for that. I don't do very many demos, partly because I don't have the time. But since there are a few people who asked to see it, and I don't know that I really didn't look this up on YouTube or anything like that to see if somebody else had done it. I know people do like the galaxies and stuff like that, but this is a different sort of take on that. So looking good with the sky here, and I'm gonna stop right here with the blue because I want to now focus on blending the green and the blue together, and at the bottom of the card. So I'm going to kind of push it up a little bit, and maybe I should clean off this ink. That's what the second paper towel is for cleaning my glass mat. Okay. So now you can see that you've got this going on. All right. I'm going to try and get some of that white halo around the colors and blend the two green and blue together. I'm not going to focus on the purple because I'm going to use my green brush to do this. So I'm just going to take a light swipe of color from the ink pad, and then I'm going to try and blend those two colors together a little bit so you have less of that white showing through. So I'm kind of focused on that line or that white area that's underneath the green. And now to the side. Let me get some more ink. My brushes are kind of off to the side and I'm hitting them, so kind of want to avoid that a little bit. Alright, so one thing I'll mention is I'm not going to fully get rid of all this white. You can see kind of peeking through. And I kind of want to keep some of that because in my inspiration photo, there is some whiteness to the lights. So I'm kind of going to keep some of that instead of trying to blend it all out. So that's going to be enough for the green. Now I'm going to use my purple brush to try and blend the purple and the green and the blue and the purple a little bit. So let me go ahead and just take a light swipe of color. I'm not pressing very hard because I don't want a very harsh purple and green blend here. I kind of want it to just look like a cloud. So there we go. Just a little bit of fuzziness around it, right? And then now with the blue brush, again, I'll take that and blend the purple and the blue together. And again, just a light swipe of color and then a light touch here as you're blending the two together. Now, if you feel like you need some more color, you just go back in, and you can change your pressure on your brush. Now, you can also hold your brush a little bit differently to get a better grip on it and a little more pressure. That'll also help. And I know it doesn't look like much, but I promise you it'll look a little bit better, at least towards the end. And if this is not what, you know, this is not your thing, that's fine. It's not going to bother me any. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and work a little bit more on the blue layer. And I'm going to pick up some more ink. And I'm going to work on the bottom and the sides. Now, in the night sky, you're going to go from a lighter color to a deeper color. So if you look at this, if it does that for you, then I think you're going to be good to go. So I'm just going to put more blue at the top here. And then as I use up some of the ink, I'll move around to the side and down to the bottom, just so that I can get a better blend. And then when I'm satisfied with that, I'm going to stop. And we'll do some stamping. Well, actually, we won't do stamping yet. Sorry. We're going to do some inking with the black soot. Okay, that's enough. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to switch over to my black brush, or the brush that has the black ink on it. And in case you are wondering, you can clean your brushes by just running them over a dry paper towel. You can use a wet wipe, but if your brush gets wet, you can't use it immediately. So that's the reason why I do a dry cleaning for this. I have actually never wet my brushes in water. So you can also use a damp paper towel to clean as well. That will help too. But again, just make sure you're not going to use it again anytime soon. You let it dry out fully. So we're going to switch to the black soot, and I'm going to use a different brush for that, as I said, so I don't contaminate my ink pads when I do that. I have two sets of these brushes, and they were $14 perhaps on Amazon, so I bought two sets for that reason, so I wouldn't have to worry about cleaning them each time I wanted to use them in different ink pads. So for the black soot, I'm going to go around the edge, the top edge and the right hand side edge. I don't want to darken the bottom too much because I want the trees to be able to show. And since we're going to stamp that in black ink, you want the contrast between the dark blue sky and the black trees. So I'm going to focus the black soot at the top of my image, and then I'll go down the right hand side of the card. Just kind of darkening it up a little bit in the night sky. And you can always, go back and do some more blending with your distress ink colors. Just be careful that you don't take your brushes too much to your ink pad if you get into this regular black part of the sky here, because that again is your regular distress ink, and I don't want you to damage your oxide pads. Now, I know a lot of people don't maybe not have this type of pad, but Hobby Lobby had them on sale from what I was seeing, and if you're willing to try them out, probably a good time to try them out because they're on sale. Now, I got a little bit too much of this green in here, or I'm sorry, this black here over where the green and the purple are. So what I'll probably try and do is get my blue brush and put some more of the Distress Oxide ink on there, on top of that. And then I won't go back into my ink pad unless I clean it first, my brush first. So I'm looking pretty good. You see what I'm talking about right in here? It's a little too dark for me. So what I'm going to do is take some of the blue. I think what I'll do is clean this because I don't want to get that on my brush. And I will start in with some blue at the top. Again, just blending it together and really trying to get more of the blue back than I had gone over with the black. And I won't go back to my ink pad without cleaning my brush first. So there's that blue again showing up. And then I'll do the same thing with the purple and the green. And reason being is because I want more of that green to show through. It looks kind of weird with that big black haze in there, so I'm going to try and get rid of that a little bit by doing this. See, and as I said before, because this is just oxide, it's more opaque, so it's going to hide that color. And again, I won't go back into my ink pad until I clean off my brush. So let me just brush it on the side so I remember to do that. I'm going to do the same thing with the purple, because I want more of that purple to show through. So let me get some of that. Okay, so you have that softened edge here along the side where that black was. And I hope that makes sense what I just did. Okay. And then back with the blue. I'm going to clean my blue one first. Well, that was the black one, so let me really clean the blue one. And I know this because I put washi tape on the handles, so I know which set it belongs to, and I don't get them mixed up. Okay, so back into the blue color. Let's get some more of this evening blue in here. You can kind of tell I move in a circular motion when I'm blending, but with these brushes, you don't really have to. You can kind of go side to side, up, down. It's up to you. Okay, that's enough, right? I got a very dark sky now. So I'm going to stop here at this point, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close up my ink pads. I think, unless I make a boo-boo, I'm going to stop here. And we're going to do some stamping. Okay. So I'm going to make a little bit of space on my area here and bring out my stamps and my VersaFine ink. And my brushes can go off to the side. Sorry about that. And I hope you can see. I'm going to push this up so you can kind of see, because I'm going to work on the bottom part of the card anyway. And we're going to stamp the treetops. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick to the top parts of these trees, because they're treetops. They're supposed to make them look taller, or give the illusion of that. I'm going to start with this one, just because it's something different. And what you'll notice is my image is going to go up the page, and I'll have ink all along the bottom edge here. But that's fine, I'll clean it up. And I'm just going to stamp it straight somewhat and off to the side. There we go. Try not to move your paper down, because again, that ink will bleed up under the edge of your paper, and you don't want that on the inside of your card. Unless you're just going to cut this panel off and stick it onto another card, but that will create bulk, and I don't like that, so that's why I chose to do it this way. Put a tall tree up in here. I think I'll go with this. It's really up to you how you want to do your scene of trees, or really how you want to do your card. I'm going to go like this, I think. And then maybe one more of these guys. Somewhere in between. Okay, and one more. Gotta cover this gap here. So now that I'm done stamping, the next thing I'm going to work on is actually drying this area up. And I see that I have a little black right there in the middle. I'm not going to worry about that right now because, you know, it's a handmade card. So let's just let it go for now. Let me close up this ink. So I will be back. I'm going to dry this with my heat gun and clean up my area a little bit, and then I'll be right back. All right, so I've dried my paper, or the ink that's really down at the bottom here. I didn't focus too much on the outer edges. More, I wanted this so it didn't smudge because it was wet. And typically the reason I use the VersaFine is because it is water. It's non-reactive with water. So if I get this wet again, which I'm about to do because I'm going to do my white splattering, it won't pull the ink. And we're not going to do a whole bunch of it. We're just going to do little tiny dots. And I'm using a Jane Davenport water brush. I like these brushes because you can control the water a little bit better. I think a lot of brushes leak. So I put some water into my half pan and then I dumped it out after letting it sit for a little while. So you can see this paint is, once it's dry, it's pretty opaque. So I'm going to do little dots by tapping my brush against my finger. Now, keep your white dots above the tree line because your stars usually don't show up in the trees like that. So you want to focus where you're putting your watercolor towards the top of the card. And again, I still have the paper towel on the left-hand side protecting the back card of the cardstock. So we're going to put a bunch of stars in. Because I like stars. Why not? Now the other thing I do want is I want one big dot for the moon. My inspiration photo had it in the middle, but I'm going to put mine off to the side because I'm going to stamp a sentiment on this card. So, okay. So now to do that, because you can't really control where it goes if you do it the way I was flicking just a second ago. I'm going to take up some paint onto the brush, and then I'm going to go over to my paper and I'm going to tip my brush like this, and then I'm going to squeeze a drop of the water out of it. That is going to cause the paint to run to the tip, and it's going to give me a bigger blob than, say, if I were to flick it. There. So there's a big blob right there. We're going to call that the moon. Now, from here on out, when you dry your paper, you want to keep it flat, because if you tilt this, that big blob is going to run across your card. Okay? So ask me how I know. So I'm going to try and keep it flat and just dry it from here on out. And I will be back to share with you. Alright guys, so I have dried my front of my card here. And so I know all the watercolor is dry. The last thing I want to do is to show you the sentiment I'm going to stamp onto here, and then I'll come back and share with you the card. I'm going to stamp this Stargazer Editions stamp set from Paper Tray, and I'm going to use one of my sentiments here on the card. And I've got some Simon Says Stamp Fine Detail embossing powder, and I use this for any sentiments that I want to show up in white. And I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool, Versamark ink, and a spoon for my embossing powder. Now, one thing I'll mention is my sentiment is probably going to go somewhere around here where this purple and blue meet. Do not, when you tilt your card to take off the embossing powder that remains, try and tilt it towards the right or whichever edge is closest to you, because you don't want it running all over your card, because I'm not going to spread this all over the card. I'm just going to do it in the one area, and you don't want embossing powder sticking to other parts of your card in case there's something that it's going to stick to. So just keep that in mind, and you'll be a little bit better off when you're trying to do your embossing. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'm going to do it off camera just for the sake of time, and I'll be right back to show you the finished card. Alright guys, so this is the completed card after the heat embossing of the white sentiment, and I wanted to do this on camera because this is very satisfying. So with clean fingers, make sure you don't have any inky fingers when you do this. You want to peel off this tape that you use to protect your card on the side. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to show you because this is kind of the satisfying part. Look. Oh, look at that. All right, get rid of that. So here is the front of the card, and you just need to then fold it in half. I'm gonna do that off camera because I don't want to, just in case I get some ink somewhere. I'm gonna do that off camera, but I'll show you the close-up of all the little white speckles and your northern lights. So here is again the card that I finished and the inspiration photo. Let me do this so you can kind of see them together. And that's how I did it, guys. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.